Okie doke. I think I'm going to go ahead and say that we will begin. Hopefully you guys can actually also see at the bottom of the screen that we have got the live transcript going on. Obviously, it's not going to be bang on all the time, taking into account my Essex accent, but hopefully that will just help with some of you following along as well. So welcome everybody, welcome to the epicness that we know is going to be Death to Stillness. Motion design was one of the most requested topics in the Fearless community, so we looked to the amazing Mr. Tonon to help us with that today. So I am not going to waste any of this time of this workshop. I'm going to hand straight over to him and let him lead you through this amazing workshop, Death to Stillness.
Thanks, Laura, so much. Welcome, everybody. Hello and welcome to Death to Stillness. This is my love letter to motion and the people we design our products. So the agenda for today is we'll see 5 chapters. The first one is why we make things move, when motion your design, fundamentals of motion, how to motion your design, and in the end, tips and tricks and the Q&A. But like, hey dude, why are you talking about these things and who are you, So my name is Mauricio Tonon. I'm a Brazilian designer, art director and 3D artist living in Barcelona. And I've been lucky to collaborate with some fantastic agencies and studios like the ones you see on the screen right now. During this time, I've been recognized with some awards in the digital field, like the awards, the FWA, Webby Awards, FE, among others, leading me to be a jury at awards from 3 years in a row. And I also have a course about how to make killer pitches on the Awards Academy platform. And for a year now, I've been teaching and mentoring people in the UI UX fundamentals on Design Lab. But I'm more a show don't tell type of guy. So here you all can see some examples of my motion work while I explain why this is so important to me. When I was a kid, I was like super fan of animes and sci-fi movies, especially the ones you saw like digital, colorful interfaces helping people do their tasks and their missions and things. And I got super excited about it. So you can imagine how stoked I was when I discovered that I could work with that, make my own versions of it. But when I started working in design, I saw that magical interface that I imagined as a kid were not happening. Instead, it was all static and boring. A lot of presentations to do, and everything needs to be done for yesterday. It was kind of frustrating until someday someone that I don't really remember who it was, I have to figure that out, someone introduced me to prototyping. At the time, 2015, it was Principal for Mac, the software that I was using, and they taught me that I could make my designs to simulate how they will work when interacting with a real user. For the time, it was like a big thing. And I knew some of my ideas were super good and could lead to interesting conversations in an exciting direction, but some of them didn't get a chance because it was tough to explain without showing them. Other times, people don't see the feasibility of how we can make it happen. So having prototype as a tool really helped to show this to people in a faster way, without expending money and time from development team to do a HTML prototype. And that's the reason number 1 of why make things move. So you can better express and sell your own ideas. And only that can be used in so many situations. For example, to explain better how an app will work during an investment pitch, which can be the difference between winning and losing. You can use it to remove communication noise between things like development, design, and management, showing exactly how you imagined your designs to work in the initial phase of the project, so you can help everybody discover the feasibility and cost of it, and if it's worth or not to be made. And it also made me see and analyze my design better, because it's not just function and form when you're designing and thinking in motion, it's also how those elements will get there, how they will show themselves to the user, and how they will respond to the users, their purpose, and how they will behave. That's lead to number 2 in our list. Motion helps you connect better with your design. By doing that, you connect better with the people that will be interacting with your designs. And that is always our goal, to connect, understand, and provide the best solutions to the users. And I always believe that we should also produce products that work as a guide to help people achieve their goals and not tasks that user needs to perform. So motion is a really good guide for that. And I thought, what is the best way to guide someone that is alive and constantly in motion in the physical world? And my answer to that is by replicating what people are used to see in the physical world. Exactly our number 3. Motion breaks a brain barrier. So in the real world, anything that any person needs to do involves motion. It's just how the world works. It works. And to emphasize it, like some simple action like drinking water involves a lot of motion. You have to move your arm in the direction of the glass, move your hand, grab it, hold it, move it in direction to your mouth, open your mouth, find the proper inclination to fit the glass in your mouth, drink the water, which implies in mouth and throat movement. And God knows what else is involved in moving your body while the water is inside of it. So, okay, nice story, but what that means? It means that the human brain processes information in movement and not the opposite. So by adding motion to your designs, you're smoothing the barrier of adaptation from the real world to the digital world, creating a seamless and easier experience. But nowadays, making an easy and frictionless experience is not enough. People want more from the brands and their products. They want to know them, they want to trust them, and they want to connect, which leads to our number 4. Motion creates wow moments that emote and inform people. That is way more important than you all can think. Everything is so fast and impersonal nowadays that creating pleasant moments in your experience shows that you care. And believe me, people love way more brands that care for them. One moment of emotion, one smile, 1 second are enough to create an emotional connection, transform a so-called user of your product into a customer. Repeat it in strategic and vital moments, and that customer becomes loyal because he wants to have the experience you're providing to him, just not need it. After all, you care for him, and that for any brand is just gold. And finally, number 5, among a million other reasons I could bring to you all, it makes your design more beautiful and exciting. It's the single best thing that you can do to elevate your designs fast to a more attractive level. And that means in your portfolio, in the client presentations, and to the people that are interacting with your experiences. Some studies show that we have 0.05 seconds to grab someone's attention on the internet. That is really fast. And we also know that usually the first impressions are the ones that last. So using motion to surprise, amaze, instigate, and guide people will help you land the best first impression ever. That's all awesome, but how to do that? So let's jump to the next chapter, when motion your design. First of all, you need to understand the scenario, the context of your product or experience. What is the audience of your product? What are the goals of the product and the business? And you can discover a little bit of that following these steps. First, learn the user needs. Learn about user mental modes of your product. For example, what do they expect to see and experience in your product based on previous experience with other products or their current interactions with physical versions of your product? Find the right time. Think about moments in the human interface interaction. You can create a special moment to bring joy to the user that can help or guide him to an action that can reward him for a long or stressful task. Don't overthink it. Thinking is great, it's what makes us humans and what makes us great designers. But if you overdo it, you'll get lost because it prevents you from making a decision. So my tip is go with your gut, your instincts. Think, follow your gut to choose the idea and quickly test it. If it seems promising, follow it. If not, go to another. And again, fast. In this space, speed is kind of critical. And don't be afraid of your ideas to let go. Don't get attached to your ideas at this phase. You have a lot of them in your whole life, believe me. Please don't overdo it. Your product is not a movie or an animation. Don't put motion just for the sake of it. It needs to have an objective, a purpose, a reason to be there. Otherwise, rethink it. Do the extra mile. Most of the agencies and studios will not prioritize motion right now. They don't see all the benefits of it, and that's why we are having this talk today. So if you want to create better experience for the users, you'll need to advocate for it in your company or your client, if you're a freelancer, which sometimes imply working some extra time. Not every project, not every time, just now, just in the beginning to create the first good experience, and that's it. After that, everything comes with it. And the last point is understand the processes. What are the design processes of your company, your client? What are your design processes? You'll need to understand it deeply and see where motion fits best on it. There is no really a rule for it. Sometimes I start thinking testing motion in an early wireframe phase, sometimes just after having the wireframes approved and tested, and sometimes after having the final product ready. The good part of this is that by understanding your process, you can think in ways to make it better, more efficient, improve it, and that will give you more time to focus on other things like motion. So now that you all understand if and how much motion should be used in your project, it's time to understand a little bit more about the motion itself. So I'll talk a little about fundamentals of motion. The Cambridge Dictionary defines motion as the act or process of moving or a particular action or movement. For me, motion is life. The whole universe is in motion right now. Galaxies, planets, systems, humans, animals, plants, even tree trunks that seem to be completely static are slowly moving. To go even further, if you get a proper equipment and zoom in a lot in a wall, for example, you'll see that the atoms inside of this wall are moving. So why the hell your layout should be static? Motion also triggers memories. It helps your brain to remember things that are dear to us, makes us connect. In product design, motion is a storytelling medium. It builds a narrative that provides context to the user. By visibly linking screens and elements together, it provides a structured guidance and establish a spatial relationship between elements. It helps us understand the organization of an act, for example. Phones and computers are what we call code media, curveless. And by adding motion to it, you start to bring it to life. Looks more natural. It's the detail that makes the whole difference. And I love this quote from Charles Ames: the details are not the details. They are what make the product. So let's jump into the Disney principles of animation. There's no better place to start. I mean, these guys created this whole thing since the beginning of Disney movies almost a century ago. And yes, it's based on animation movies, but they work as a Bible for motion designers worldwide, independent of their type of animation. The videos you're seeing here are produced by Emmanuel Colombo. He's a super nice designer. He shares a lot of content about motion. If you can, please share him. He has some really nice content to share with you guys. The first principle of motion is squash and stretch. Squash and stretch represent an object, gravity, mass, weight, and flexibility in motion. In interfaces, expanding and compressing elements will give you this illusion of weight. That was what we are looking for by using this technique. This makes it more believable and more natural. The principle of anticipation. Anticipation helps to prepare the viewer for what's going to happen. When applied, it has the effect of making the object's action more realistic. Again, motion is about breaking this barrier of the physical and digital world, making it more natural. So all these points will lead to that in some other way. In interfaces, hover states are a perfect example of this, using a small movement to indicate that a bigger action is going to happen. Timing. Timing gives mood and character to objects. Timing and easing play an essential role in motion choreography. A lengthy to long transition makes your user wait too long, get bored. On the other hand, your users may miss something if your animations are too fast. Usually motion happens between 300 milliseconds to 1 second, not much more than that. Slow in and slow out, kind of basic, but most of the objects in the real world moves with ease. That means they doesn't have an abrupt motion. For example, a free-falling object like a ball, if you release from your hand to the ground, it will start slowly and then it gains momentum and velocity. In interfaces, easing is what you're looking for, especially ease in and ease out. By using these features, you add a realistic sense of acceleration and deceleration. Staging. Staging choreographs the scenes. That is, how the objects are placed in a scene, how and when each animation is taking place. In interfaces, staging decides where the elements are placed and how they are choreographed when an interaction happens. It directs the user's attention to our focal points. For example, we have a text that is really important to the user to see it. Add a slightly movement or something around it that will bring the attention to the user to that and let the other things around it static. So you solve your problem. The principle of secondary action. In animation, secondary action is used to support or enhance the primary action of an object. For example, the motion of a character's head while walking is a secondary action. Walking is the first one. The motion of the head is a consequence, a secondary action. In interfaces, secondary actions can make primary actions more prominent. These are useful when you have an element that needs to give feedback to the user, for example. Therefore, all the micro interactions are based on the secondary action principle. So, for example, if you tap a button, and this button, let's say purchase button, and when you tap on it, a small animation occurs saying to the user that the purchase was complete and a tick icon get on it. This is a secondary action. Exaggeration and appeal. Important elements in the scene must be appealing, and at the same time, specific actions can be exaggerated to gain more attention. In interfaces, essential interactions can be exaggerated to gain user attention. For example, the static state of a floating button in the right down corner of an app, which is colorful and create contrast with the background, can be exaggerated by expanding this area to make the whole screen to show its importance. And the last principle is follow through and overlapping. This is a little bit more complicated one. Let's consider rabbit jumping. When the rabbit starts his motion, his ears might start off, so he starts going to the front, his ears go back and move after the body. That's overlapping action. And when he lands, when he arrives on the earth, its ears will still be in motion and going forward. So that's follow through. In interfaces, adding this type of movement after an action to create a sense of realism. So when animating elements, make sure that they don't stop, then start and stop all at once. Sorry. So these were the main principles of motion that can help you create high quality animation. I didn't cover all the principles because some of them really don't apply to user interfaces, but you can finally them all with a quick Google and YouTube search. And now let's get more technical. How to motion your design. Fine. First, let's talk about tools. Yeah, it's a lot of options right there, and it's just the most famous ones. It's not all of them. So as you all can see, there is no excuse to not start doing motion. It has options for Windows, for Mac, paid, free, complex, easy ones. And today we will be focused on the simplest and a free one, so anyone can try, Figma. But before we jump into how to do the animations, let's talk about how to prepare your designs for it. So I'll give some valid tips for prototyping and motion and InDesign in general. So first, organize and name your layers correctly. Really do this is super, super important in all your projects. From day one, create a layer, name it. You have 3 layers that make a button, group them and name the group and the layers inside of it. It takes some time to get used to doing it, but it just happens naturally when you do it for a while. And that is something that will help you to accelerate your prototyping workflow, will improve the communication and hands-off to the development team, and improve efficiency in general. It's always easier to refer to a design element by its name instead of like rectangle 1.5 to 2.3. So here in the right part, you can see how organized and named file look. It doesn't have components on purpose, okay? And how to do this? There is really no right way of naming things. You can find your own. I suggest you find your own. And I'll share with you all how I make. So I group elements, then I group components, then I group modules. So start small and start growing to create bigger groups. And naming them descriptively. So for example, a button group should contain the layers main button green background, main button text, and button icon arrow. And that's it. It's super simple, right? So start doing it with all your designs, and I promise they will pay off. The second tip is clear your file. Remove all hidden and unnecessary layers. If it's not seen by the user is not seeing the final product, it shouldn't be there for the prototype. Also, make sure you simplify your layout the most you can. So instead of using masks to fit the image, could you just place the picture itself and work on positioning, corner, radius, etc.? If the answer is yes, then use it. Do it, because it simplifies the whole case. Also, on the vectors, if you are using some Boolean group feature like union or subtract, make sure you flatten the vector before starting prototype. It prevents for giving some glitches on most prototyping tools. And lastly, detach all components. It really helps because most of the prototyping tools don't recognize components. They will bring the component to the tool as just one single element. So I really recommend that you, when you have your designs ready, duplicate it, the page of it just for the prototype, and then you do all this cleansing and detaching the components, and also you don't lose what you've done before. And the third step is plan your animation. First, create the states of your animation in a frame sequence to have a clear vision of what is moving, where it's going, and how it's going. And don't worry, while animating, you can and should modify it to get best results. So now that we are prepared, let's jump in a quick work session in Figma. This is not intended to be a tutorial, but to explain in a practical way what some quick tips that will help improve your prototyping, and you can apply to all your tool of choice to prototype. So let's jump into Figma. Are you all seeing my screen?
Yes.
Thanks. So here is a simple prototype I did. It's loading again, of course. Doesn't really apply the tips. It's just a simple interaction. So we have elements coming in. We have this overstate. I know a mobile doesn't have an overstate. It's just to showcasing purpose. You can navigate here. You can scroll down, and you can have the menu interaction. But as you all can see, some things are overlapping and not like really working as I wanted them to work. So I create a second version of it, and I will focus on this one to explain how a good transition happens in Figma. So first of all, to create animations in Figma is really simple. Go to the prototype tab here on the right, and all you have to do is have two frames and the same elements on both frames. So I have the welcome back design community here on this 0 state, but what happened is it's a little bit down and it's with 0 opacity. So let me just show you all here. These elements are with 0 opacity, but they are just down here, okay? And the first tip is offset your elements a little bit. So instead of them being like this, I just give 2 types down. It will create a more realistic sense of motion, because things will move differently. Remember from the principles we saw, not everything moving and arriving at once. So this is how you do it, simple and easy. And that's it. You have the same element here. I offset the whole group down a little bit, and now you change the opacity to 0. It doesn't work if you just hide the layer, okay? So you have to change the opacity. And I did that with all the elements on the screen. So the header is up there, the level card is down here, coin card is down here, a little bit down than the other one, so not everything moving at once. Same thing with the carousel of articles. And they also are offset with different distances. And this is basically how you create a prototype on Figma. So you have the elements placed on the main screen, the screen that the user will see, and you have them placed it and with 0 opacity and with the offset movement on the first screen. You just need to link the screen. So I'll just do it here. Link the screen to this one. On tap, navigate to home. And in the animation, this is the secret that makes things interesting in Figma. Instead of instant, you need to do smart animate. And that's why we have all the elements in both screens to use the smart animate. Here you can see that they have an easy out. I will change it to ease in and ease out. And I'll change the timing for 800 maybe. And let's test this prototype. So now things are happening a little bit more interesting. Things are offset. And let me give you more time to it just so you all see it properly. So everything is moving around in a more smooth way right now. Let's just go back because this is too slow. We bore any user around the world. And remember this problem we had from things overlapping? That is the second main tip. Instead of having just the other screen here, what I did is just add a transition screen. What it is that a screen that is looking blank because it has the elements from the home screen and the elements from the menu. All is in here, okay? But they are all offset and they are all with 0 opacity. So what does that create? Now, when you click on the menu, you first have a clean transition and then you see the menu coming up. And same thing going down. I just replicate the same transition here so you can go back to it and go here. And the transition screen has one difference from the other type of prototyping, that is, instead of on tap, you have to choose after delay and set a number to it. I choose 300 milliseconds is enough. I think it's creating a nice movement. So that's it. That's really, really simple and really makes the whole difference on your product. And the other 2 elements I created was a hover state for the level and a hover state for the coins. So one screen for each one of them. And what I did is on the level, I add a shadow in the background, I move it up a little bit and I slightly angulate it. But I also, inside of the card, I move up and increase the size of this rocket. With the coin, almost the same thing, but instead of increasing, I just rotate it a little bit. So here you can see that it grows with this movement. And the third tip is when you are creating carousels, one of the easiest ways to create a carousel that goes to the end, have the same spacing as in the beginning, is to just add an opacity layer. What is an opacity layer? Let me see where it is. Sorry. Here, opacity layer carousel. So it's a layer that is after all the others, and it just has 0 opacity. So it is shaped with zero opacity, and Figma will consider the space of this element to like let you scroll down here. So super fast and super simple introduction to how to motion your designs better in Figma. The principles are all here. Create a first state, second state, and then keep doing again and repeating. Offset your things and work nice with timing and easing in and ease out. Now let's just go back to the presentation. Just 1 second. Here we go. Tips and tricks. Okay, I hope you all like this example and are more interested in motion and product design. And I'll give some practical tips to help you do better designs and use it in your motion workflow. So the first tip is take care of yourself. Yes, cliche, I know, but it needs to be repeated. Take care of your mental health. There is no work in the world that worth your sanity and health. Ask for help if you need. Reach people. Tell them what's happening and get help. It could be your boss, it can be HR, it can be even a friend, but do it. Second is hydration. I know most of us humans don't drink enough water, but what does that have to do with design, you may ask? Well, everything. Water is the fuel of your body and your brain. It brings oxygen to your cells, which means that your whole body, including your brain, where your thinking process happens, will work better. Just grab a 1 liter bottle of water and keep it around. When you have time to take a sip while working, do it. When you finish a task, take a sip, something like this, simple, effective. Tip 3 is meditate. Another simple practice that will change your life and help you grow as a designer. And you don't need to have a paid app to do it. YouTube itself has tons of meditations that can help you. Just find ones that fit your preference. Some of them you need to sit down, others you can lay down, some you focus on your breath, others visualization. Find the one that fits for you. And what are the benefits of it as a designer? Meditation teaches you to stay in the moment and detach from your ideas, which allows you to clearly evaluate problems inside a design environment and rapidly think on practical solutions without letting your ego get involved. So why I tell these 3 tips that basically don't have much to do with design itself? Because your designs will be as good as you are as a person. If you're having a shitty day, your designs will not look good because you're not your best. So take time to take care of yourself because it makes the whole difference and you'll see it in your designs applied, okay? The 4th tip is a really design focused one. It's about creating a design memory. So creating and practicing your design memory will allow you to do things faster. That will give you extra time to start applying motion to your designs, for example. What is your design memory? Design memory is what your brain does automatically without requesting effort and time from you. Are the small tasks that you train your brain to do. Like what type of icons should I use? Should the buttons have round corners or sharp or circle? What typography combinations work well together and convey the message and the tone that this client is trying to say? All of these decisions can be almost automatically being given to you by your brain if you train him to do it. And how do you train your brain? Simple. While designing it, write written notes about your decisions. Like after selecting the icon pack for a project, stop, write it down the reasons you did choose this specifically icon set and what are you trying to achieve by making this choice. Read it out loud once, that's it. By doing that with the most critical decisions in your design, your brain will quickly pick up how your thinking process is and do it automatically for you. I know it is pretty boring and another task to do in the workflow, but you don't expect better results to doing the same things, right? I really promise that this work is a lot. And with that, we arrive at the end of this talk. I hope to have planted the seed of motion in each of you, and you all become advocates of a more interactive, exciting, and effective digital experiences. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. That was absolutely wonderful, Mauricio. That was amazing. It was so great to see all the thought process behind it. I think obviously everybody is keen to upskill themselves in terms of kind of learning from tutorials of how to do the skills, but actually before you do that, you need to understand everything that you've so brilliantly articulated here today, which is fab. So guys, let's open it out to you. Does anybody have any direct questions that they would like to ask? We've got one already here from Raquel. A few people have answered, but let's get your input as well. I'm curious to know what software you can use to record a demo of a prototype to share it as a video file.
So if you're doing in Figma, I recommend Camtasia, for example, is a good software. But usually the software, the prototyping tools like Principal, Flinto, and all of them, you generate directly from it the video. So you have like the testing version that you can show to the user and you can test it. And you can generate also the video that shows people how to interact with it. You put in a portfolio, to showcase your boss or to the developers. So the prototyping tools, I think all of them have this feature built on it. And to record things, I just really know Camtasia. Sorry that I can't suggest any other one.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's have a little look here. Can you see the chat as well, Mauricio?
Yeah, I can open here.
Let's have a little look. Raquel says, inspiring talk. That's wonderful. Okay, so we have got, since animating in Figma requires a lot of transparent layers, what is the workflow of prototyping an animated interface? It seems quite hard to use an agile workflow. If you change a card, for example, you need to change a lot of instances.
Yeah, so that's why you detach the components and duplicate your file to have just the prototype one. So you don't have to do it all at once. You just work on what you're showing to the user. That simplifies a lot. And I know it seems a lot to do, but honestly, to do this prototype, I did right here, show you guys, it took me 20 minutes to do both. So it's really pasting the things from one artboard to the other one, offset a little bit down or up or right or left, change the opacity to 0. That's it. It's done. You just repeat it to all the elements. When you have like a really, really big app, yes, it requires time and it requires effort. And right now, I don't really know any faster solution to that, to be honest. Prototyping is something that is growing day by day, but it's still in early stages. But for example, it's way faster to use Figma or Principal or Flinto to prototype anything instead of like After Effects. It will take like a lot of time to do something like this in After Effects, like almost 10 times more. It's like really, really crazy.
Awesome, thank you. Have you got any, what would be your absolute, your favorite in terms of the software? Obviously, there's quite a few different ones about. What is your preference and why do you prefer it?
For me, it's Principal for Mac. The problem is it's just for Mac. But the learning curve to it is like really, really, really fast. How I learned Principal is like one Friday, I was leaving work and like my boss, hey, we'll need some help with prototypes on Monday. Do you know Principal, right? And like, yeah, I know. On the weekend, I just figured out what Principal was and followed the tutorials on their website. Like in one evening, 2-3 hours, it was done. I learned the whole thing and could help the team in the other week by just giving this 2 hours tutorial thing. So I really recommend because it's so easy to do it. If you have interest or knowledge in code, at least basics of code, understand how code works, Webflow is just really amazing. It has a little bit of a harder learning curve in the beginning, but after you pick it up, like you can do really amazing things really fast, and it has a lot of free options. So I would recommend this tool for sure.
Fantastic. And would you say, obviously, I love the reference to Disney, absolute original animation king, kind of set a lot of principles for people to follow. Are there any other kind of inspirational people out there that you would recommend people look up if they're interested in adding motion and animation? Perhaps some more modern people who have got the experience with interface specifically?
Yes, I do. So first is Gleb. He's a awesome designer that works on fantasy, and now he has his own agency. I'm dropping the link here on the chat. Other one is Louis Ansa. He is a really good French designer specialized in motion. His work is really amazing, and he has a free talk on YouTube of awards explaining his process about it. So it's really interesting too. So these guys are my main references, actually, like in the actual times. But I take a lot of references from movies, from this kind of things, even from dance. Like it's super interesting. For example, I had to do a super premium app last year. It requires some really nice and different types of movement. I watch a lot of ballet videos to see how they move their body and things, and that gives the inspiration to arrive to the results. So as I said in the talk, like everything's emotion around you. If you really stop and see and paying attention to it, I think the real world is the best inspiration because you can mimic what people see every day. So when you see something like that, it's like it's not different or hard, something they're used to see. It's always more natural.
Awesome. I absolutely loved what you said earlier on in the talk, that motion is life, so why would your designs be static? And I think that's just such a wonderful key thing to kind of take away and really make people think about their designs and how everything looks, because as you say, everything in life is motion. Okay, guys, if you've got any more questions. Oh, lovely, Raquel, one more has just come in. What about including sound into prototypes? Any tips or software?
I don't think any prototyping tool itself has it. In Adobe XD, I know you can include some sounds, especially capturing sounds from real world, so it's really nice. And Framer is a really good tool to use with sound. But just to add like sound to a video, After Effects is really the simplest one. You have your video there, you put an MP3 in there, change the time there will be, that's it.
Fantastic. And we've got one here from Sina. How do you provide specifications for the animations for developers?
Okay, so I usually don't do specifications. I usually try to be with the developers from day one of the project. And if that's not possible, in the end of the project, I do the animation examples and do a call with all of the developers, explaining the whole thing, how I imagine, sharing their values of the easing. So I annotate the values, for example, and share with them, because Principal, the tool I use, doesn't have HTML capacities, but is implementing in the last update. So I think I will try to see how their HTML export will work. But usually what I do right now, my work for Why Now, is just sitting down with them, explaining, see if they have any doubts, sharing the values and everything, and really a talk, because it's not about just giving to them to do the work. It's a conversation, and it requires a little bit of help from our side. But if your software has HTML or CSS export features, just give that to developers and they will love it.
Fantastic. And we've got a question here from Sergey. Which software do you use to create 3D animations?
I personally use Cinema 4D because I started a long time ago and I'm really not in the mood to learn something new right now. But I really, really recommend Blender, free. A lot of tutorials and recursos online. You can download it right now, start doing it. It's really interesting. It's really interesting, and it provides you another layer of motion, because when you go into a 3D software, it's like everything there is a blank canvas, but with a third dimension. So you're like, whoa, you have to understand a little bit more of motion. So it is really interesting, and it's not as hard to learn as it seems. It's kind of a little bit of a monster because you have thousands capacities to do, but to product design specifically, you have to learn like basic things that you can learn in a month, being honest. So if you really want it, just download Blender right now. It has a super nice YouTube channel called Blender Guru. They teach you a lot of great ways to do things fast. And I think you can even find some tutorials of using Blender and 3D softwares to product design specifically. I have to search it about it. I just saw it like here and there, but don't have any real recommendation, but I think it has. But again, Blender is really your way to go if you not want to spend some money, because Cinema 4D is paid. Unless you have the Adobe subscription, the little version of Cinema 4D came with After Effects. So you just download After Effects, you can download Cinema 4D. For me, it's easier than Blender. The interface is more friendly and all, but it's really expensive if you don't have the Adobe subscription.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, well, I don't think we've got any more questions coming in, guys. This is your last call to pop a question in the chat box if you have got any burning questions before we finish up. But just to say that obviously Mauricio is part of the Fearless community. He's wonderfully active in there and he's so forthcoming with sharing all of his knowledge and nuggets of wisdom. So if you don't think of anything now, but something crops up later, I'm sure he'd be more than happy for you to reach out or just pop it in the community questions channel, tag him in, and I'm sure he'd be more than happy to give you some answers there. We've got one last question coming from Raquel. What about prototyping for AR apps?
So this is something that really interesting me right now. I'm even searching for a course to do it, because right now I can do it, but just fake do it. So it's really fake do it. So I did a Carson Awards that it's kind of a ring shopping experience. What I did was like record my own hand doing the thing with the cell phone, and then put the video in and create the animation over the video that I did. So it's a little bit of a hard process right now, but I'm sure it has some new softwares that can simplify this flow a lot. But right now I'm doing the hard way. So it's just like recording things myself or finding a video itself and putting the 3D animation over the video or record that I make.
Awesome. I think one thing that we know probably from the last couple of years is just how quickly the tech advances, and it will in certain places have to play catch up for now, but rest assured those developments are probably coming and things will get easier over time. But yeah, for now there might be a few little workarounds that need to happen. Wonderful. Okay, well, I'm going to say we'll end it there. Thank you so much, Mauricio. This has been absolutely wonderful, super insightful, and given everybody, I'm sure, a lot to think about as well. Guys, thank you all so much for attending. As I say, if you aren't already, please do join the Fearless community. I will grab the link very quickly for you now. So you can join, where you will meet many talented people who are so forthcoming with advice and sharing their wisdom in their specific skill set. So don't be afraid to reach out to people, because I think it's fair to say they're a really friendly bunch, aren't they, Mauricio? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, a lot. The most friendly community I found, super welcoming, and see you guys out there.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. Don't panic if you didn't make the whole thing. I know some people came in late. This has been recorded and it will be emailed out to everybody who signed up for a ticket next week. So it's on your way to you. You're not going to miss out. But once again, guys, thank you all so much for attending. A big round of applause to Mauricio. This is absolutely awesome. And we hope to see you again for the next Fearless event. Until the next time, everyone. See you later.
Bye-bye. See ya.